All right, so we've been doing a lot of stuff in the command line, and it's great practice, and also a lot of developers prefer it. But in the new Xcode 9, there's actually a couple of changes that have been made in terms of how Git version control is implemented, and I have to say it's a lot better than previous versions, almost to the point that I'm tempted to use this instead of using the command line. But of course, you can choose whichever one you prefer, and that's why I'm going to show you how you can do everything that we've just done using Xcode itself without having to ever touch the command line. So let's go ahead and create a Xcode project, and it's going to be a single view iOS application, and I'm going to call it Udder, which is like an alternative to Uber. But here's my pitch. What if you could get fresh milk on demand through the Udder app? Okay, let me know in the Q&A what you think about this. But anyways, let's go ahead with our example. Gonna go ahead and click next. And it's really important that previously we've not really cared much about this, but given that we're talking about source control and version control, we need to create a Git repository on my Mac using Xcode. And this is the equivalent of using git init in our terminal. So I'm going to save it on my desktop and just make sure that you've got that checked. Go ahead and click create. And here's our brand new project. Now I'm going to do a couple of things first. I'm going to maybe add a UI label to the top of my file, and I'm going to call my app Udder, as I already pitched to you. And I'm going to change the size of it to size 40, make it maybe a dark gray color, and let's just make that resized to the right size, and let's give it a tagline. Why not? Fresh milk on demand. Sounds pretty good, right? Sounds like a startup already. All right, so now that I've done that, the other thing I want to do is add some image assets. So I've got two images, one of milk and one of cow, which is all going to be very relevant in this particular app. So now I am ready to go ahead and make my second commit. So the first commit is on initializing the project, and you can take a look at where the commits are by going to this brand new source control navigator. So if you head over there and you expand these folders, then you can see that we've got a Udder master, and we've got an initial commit that was made when our project was created. So let's go ahead and commit our latest changes. So to do that, we simply go to source control and hit commit, or use the option command C shortcut if you wish. Now, in the left-hand pane here, you can see some of those changes that were made. So we added these two new images, we changed our main storyboard. Of course, this is all in XML, and you can see that this is showing what the differences are. So for example, I added a brand new label, which previously didn't exist, and also I added a UI image view. So I'm ready to commit those changes, so I have to enter a commit message here. Add label, add label and images. And we're going to go ahead and commit those 7 files to our local repository. So now if you have a look at our master branch, you can see that we have 2 commits that are made. All right, so now that that commit's been made, let's say we go into our main storyboard and we kind of just mess everything up. Let's just try and mess up our interface and make it something pretty terrible, and let's delete all the useful parts, and now it's pretty much a mess. And our view controller, let's add some mumbo jumbo, which is not code, and let's say we accidentally even deleted our main storyboard. Let's just move it to trash, shall we? Now we've made some pretty big issues. Let's delete view controller as well. This is a really common bug, by the way, that a lot of students in our in-person programming bootcamp get themselves into, which is when you think that you've got something selected over here, but actually you've still got the file selected. And if you hit backspace, it'll actually try to move your file to trash. So we've made a mess of things, basically. So of course you can drag them out of the trash because we've just placed them in the trash. But let's say that we've just messed everything up irreversibly. But what we can do is, because we have that last good commit, we can simply go to source control and discard all changes. So this will discard all the changes that we made since the last commit inside our working copy. So if I hit this button, you can see that a little bit of work is done behind the scenes, and ta-da! All of our beautiful work is restored to the last checkpoint, and we will no longer get fired from our jobs. And there are countless stories of Git and source control saving people's lives at work every day. So that was pretty cool. Now, what about another feature of Git? What about branching? Well, it's equally easy to do. So if we head into the master branch and we decide to make a branch at this point, and we can simply just right click and say branch from this particular hash or this particular point, and we can give our branch a name. And I'm going to call this the milk design, and it will all become clear very quickly. So now I have the milk design, but it's important to note that current, or the branch that we're currently on, is still the master branch. So I have to also check out to switch to the milk design branch. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're now on the milk design branch, and I'm going to go into the main storyboard, and I'm going to put an image view onto the screen. And I'm going to place the milk image that I've got in my assets folder on here. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, so that's my milk branch done, and I'm going to save my main storyboard, and I'm going to commit my changes. So let's say we change interface, change view controller interface. And these are obviously the changes in XML that I have just made. So added that image view, and that includes that milk resource. So let's go ahead and commit that file. So now let's head back to the source control navigator, and let's have a look at our milk design branch. So you can see that the latest commit is in action, change view controller interface. Now I'm going to create another branch. So I'm going to branch from the latest checkpoint inside master. So we're going to branch from here again. I'm going to call this a cow design. So just bear with me here. And I'm going to check out to switch over to the cow design branch. And now I'm going to go to my main storyboard. And remember, because we're currently at the last checkpoint on the main branch, we haven't actually got an image view yet. That's only inside the commit for the milk design branch. So here I'm going to put another image view, and you guessed it, I'm going to put the cow image that I've got in here. So now I have got a cow design and also a milk design. So now I'm going to save my main storyboard. I'm going to go to source control and hit commit. And I'm going to say change interface to incorporate cow image. Now you always want to be precise when you are writing your commit messages, because if somebody else is coming across this and each of your commits are just changes, changes, then that really doesn't help anybody. And I've actually seen this before, but this is bad practice, and this would probably get you fired if you're working in a very Git intensive team. So let's go ahead and commit this file and go back to our source control navigator and check out our cow design. Okay, so we've got the cow images, we've got the milk design. And you know what? I think that I prefer the milk design. So I am going to merge my milk design into my master, and that is going to become my master branch. So all I have to do is right click on milk design, and I'm going to click checkout. And now I can right click on master and say merge milk design into master. So milk design is my current branch that I'm currently on, and I'm going to merge it into my master branch. So go ahead and click merge. Now once it's done that, you're going to be reverted back to the master branch because it's now merged. And if you have a look inside your main.storyboard, you can see the milk design is now the accepted design on our master branch. All right, so that was all very easy. Now, another thing that you can do is, what if you wanted to have a look back at what milk design looked like, or at the code that you made in another branch, or, way back in a random or different commit? Well, say if at the moment we're currently at this point on the master branch, if I want to have a look at what, this checkpoint was like, then I can simply right click and say, check out this particular commit. So if we check that out and we go back to our main storyboard, you can see that everything is reverted to that checkpoint or that commit. Now, this can be really invaluable for your code files because sometimes, way back at some, 3 months ago, you might have created some sort of feature that you thought was a little bit crappy, but now you've decided that it's actually a great idea. So you can have a look at what each and every commit looks like by simply checking out the commit. So let's go back to master and check out the main master branch and head back to where we are meant to be. So when you check out one of the earlier commits, you can use it to compare the differences. So currently we're on the master branch, and let's say that we, type some code in here. Let's just add, maybe a view will appear and a comment. So let's go ahead and save that. So this is our master branch and commit. And view will appear, and we're going to commit that file, and you can see this is the difference between this commit and the previous commit in terms of the code. This is the addition. So let's go ahead and commit that file, and then if we head over to one of our milk design, let's say check out, and in the view controller, you can see that it doesn't have the view did load, but here we're going to delete the did receive memory warning block of code. I'm going to save and I'm going to commit, and I'm going to say delete memory warning code. Okay, so now you can see that this is the latest commit, this is the previous version, and we are removing this block of code. So let's commit that one file. So now what I can do is, if I go into this particular button, which is the version editor, I can compare and contrast my code files. So on the left, I've got my master branch latest version, which has the view will appear and the did receive memory warning. Now on the right, let's say that I've got my milk design latest version. So you can see that the version editor actually highlights the differences between the two code files that you're comparing. So you can compare different commits against each other, either from different branches or on the same branch, but way back historically. And you can check out what are the code changes that you've made and see what the previous code looked like. And this is really invaluable when you screw up or when you mess up your code, because you can always compare and port things over if you realize that you actually do need this. So the last thing that I want to show you in terms of using Xcode for source control is using remotes, and namely GitHub. So Xcode has integrated a really neat feature where you can actually push your project using Xcode to your GitHub remote. So the first thing you have to do is go into Xcode and go to Preferences. And if you go to Accounts, you can click Add an Account. And instead of picking Apple ID, you're going to pick GitHub. So continue, and then you're going to log in using your GitHub account. And once you've done that, and of course you need to be internet enabled for this check to pass, because they're going to log you in remotely to GitHub, and they're going to grab your SSH keys and everything that you need to be able to create a remote and push to your remotes. So once you're done with that, you can close that down. And now if we go into the source control navigator, we can head back to master. So let's check out master. And from here, I'm going to create a new remote, and I'm going to push my project to GitHub. So if you click on your main repository and you right click, you can create a other remote on GitHub, or you can also add an existing remote. So if you created a GitHub remote already and you just want to add that existing remote, then you can use this. But in most cases, you'll probably be creating a brand new remote on GitHub. So go ahead and give it a repository name, a description. And you can see this is very, very similar to what we did when we set up a new repository inside GitHub. And as you can see, the default name for your remote is still Origin, and I would recommend to keep it so. So once you're done, go ahead and click Create, and it's going to push your existing repository, your local repository that's managed by Xcode, to your GitHub account. And now if you look inside this remotes folder, whereas before it was empty, you now have a origin, and the origin has the master branch pushed to it. So now if I head over to my GitHub repository, you can see this brand new other repository that's been created for me. And so you can see how incredibly simple it has been to push all of these commits onto my other repository. And I've done all of that without touching the command line, without touching GitHub. So if you are using a remote repository, so from now on, if you make some changes to your code, say, let's add a view did disappear. And we save and we go to source control and we say commit. You have the option to push to your remote. You can have more than one remote and you can pick which one you want it to go to. Now, alternatively, if you already committed without pushing, you can also use the push functionality over here as well. So now let me show you something. If we go on to other and we add a README, now this is going to make our remote repository be different to our local repository. So we're just going to say this is an app that gives you on-demand fresh cow's milk. And let's just say create README and commit to the master branch. All right, so that's done, the README's added, and now you can see that my remote repository now has a new file that my local directory does not have. So now if I try to go to source control and I said push, then it's actually going to fail. And the reason is because the local repository is out of date. It's basically saying that on the remote repository, we have stuff that we don't have locally. So we're actually behind the remote repository because they have more things or more up-to-date stuff. So in order to make our local repository reflect the changes or be up to date with the remote repository, we're going to use pull. So let's first commit our local changes. So add view did disappear. And we're going to commit that file without pushing. And then we're going to say pull. And we're going to pull from our origin master branch. Hit pull. And it's going to pull successful. Great. So now if we have a look inside this file, other, you'll see that it actually pulled down that README file that we created inside GitHub. So now our other local repository has everything that the remote repository has, and it has some more changes. So at this point, we're going to use push to push that latest change or that latest commit, which is of course the one where I added the view did disappear. So let's go ahead and go to source control, push to origin master, hit push, and now it will successfully push to the GitHub remote. So now if we check under other, check inside view controller.swift, you can see view did disappear now shows up. So that's a little bit of primer on how you can work with GitHub, Git, source control, or using Xcode. So I hope that has been interesting for you. And of course, it's totally up to you which one you prefer, which one is quicker, easier, more reliable. And the whole reason why I showed you both ways of doing it, either using the command line or using Xcode's graphical user interface, is for you to pick and choose. So in the next lesson, we're going to be diving into some slightly more advanced topics in terms of GitHub and Git, and we're going to be talking about forking, pull requests, and merging. So I will see you there.